Hey guys, it's your girl Cree coming back at you. Cree 21 Boom with a serious topic. I know I talk about relationships all the time, but one that is near and dear to my heart, I'm going to talk about today, and that is our future, our children. My guest today experienced some things that I don't think anybody should ever experience. You know what I mean? So he's going to share his experiences. He's going to introduce himself, and we're going to like really talk about it because we don't really talk about it enough. And I don't think we can ever talk about it enough because as long as we are alive, our children are going to be there and they need us despite everybody else needing us. They need us, number one. So without further ado, I'm going to let my guest introduce himself and then we're going to get right into it.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Jackson, Cancer and King. Um, been here in the clean area a few years. Met up with Cree a couple of years ago. Pretty interesting journey. Let's talk about our future, Cree.
Let's do that. If y'all know anything about me, y'all know that I talk to any and everybody. I'm always coming with something positive. I like to put a positive spin on things because we automatically go to the negative or the worst case scenario. However, I do believe there is hope. There is hope for somebody. Might not be you, her, him, but it's for somebody. So I started this podcast with the idea of building healthy relationships, regardless to the dynamic, whether it's a friend, a mother, a child, a brother, a coworker, or whatever. But I really didn't put a lot of emphasis on the children and what the children are going through in our communities. Like I went through all my notes and I had nothing about kids. Like it starts with us, but it's going to end with them because we're not going to always be around. So what we instill in them today counts for what they're going to instill in their children and future children's to come. So, what we're instilling in them, I don't know. We're going to talk about it now. First, though, I'm going to have Jack share his experience, and then we'll just go from there. And I got some key points that we're going to talk about. But hopefully, from this conversation, we reach somebody so that they can figure out, like, okay, what I've been doing is not working for my children. Because we all have had those kids who we think we did all we can for them, and they still run amok, like they still doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And we get so lost in work and our other children or house or husband or mate that we completely neglect the child that probably need the most of our attention at that moment. I have my own personal, stories and tales for my oldest son and my youngest, but mostly my oldest son. And I think we all probably experienced something like that from one of our kids, if not more than one of them. So today we're going to talk about like some things what we could probably do to help our kids do better, or just some things or some knowledge that we're going to share, me and Jack, that we've experienced and that I've jotted down, obviously. And if y'all have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything y'all want to talk about, just hit me in the comments and we'll discuss it however we see fit. Now, if I can get Ranger to stop barking, we can get on with this conversation. So go ahead and share your story, friend. Ranger, come.
Okay. So it was just this past weekend. I'm at the house getting some things together. Just doing some things around the house, getting ready for the weekend. And I had two little girls knock on my door. I would estimate they probably between ages 11 and 13 at the most. Unaccompanied, just two little girls walking in the neighborhood. And they asked me, and I quote, "Is there anything we can do to make money?" End quote. And needless to say, it threw me way off. It threw me like I was really in a state of shock because you kind of accustomed to little boys going around cutting grass, and not that little girls can't go around and get their hustle on, but these young ladies, young girls, not even young ladies yet, were empty handed. It's not like they had no cleaning supplies, lawnmowers, rakes, or nothing like that. And the way they presented the question, like I said, it was just mind boggling because you don't know whose door you're knocking on. You don't know what that person's history is. We all probably at one time or another need to look at our neighborhoods and see if we have registered sex offenders in the area because most neighborhoods have at least one. People often confuse nice houses with nice neighborhoods. and trust and believe. I've in my past profession, I can tell you that all walks of life live in every neighborhood in your community. Please do not be confused about your curb appeal, thinking that you just in, this Mayberry type time because you don't know what your neighbor is capable of, he or she. So it's just when they knocked on the door, like I said, I was flabbergasted. I sent them away, but then I immediately ran back out. Hey, stop what you're doing. What you're doing right now, you're putting yourself in grave danger unknowingly.
Sorry. Keep talking, friend.
So, so like I say, the initial experience had me in shock, but then I did a bounce back within seconds. Like, and when it stopped them, you know, because of the concern of whose door they may knock on and actually invite them in to make money, quote unquote. And so I'm gonna pause right here because I'm talking to a sofa. Need some interaction.
My apologies. Somebody trying to sell something,
Mm,
ringing the doorbell, setting Ranger off.
mm,
But a more serious note, I first like to commend you, for because friend reached out to me 2, 3 times. He said, "You talking about relationships? We need to talk about this thing," and I totally agree
all
with
right.
you. I wanted to get to this topic as soon as possible. First of all, it's like two young girls walking door to door, like that's scary enough, and then ringing a
Right.
bell and they have the courage to say, "Is there anything I can do for money?" Like that is
Yeah.
terrifying because when you
Yeah,
think
like,
about it,
not cutting your grass, not, yeah, it's just you almost writing a blank check. It's like when you knocking on the wrong door, you don't know what that person's going to say to you. And that's why it was so shocking to me.
so I forgot what I was saying. Friend cut me off. Wait, friend, let me get my point across. So you turn them away first. Like, so I commend you for going back
Right.
out there and getting them. That's what I wanted to say. I commend you for thinking about it
Mm.
and actually going out there to be like, "Hey, something ain't right. Like, what are y'all doing?" And then you said that
Right.
you kind of asked him some questions.
Yeah, because I was like, what are y'all trying to make money for? They told me they're just trying to get money for Easter. I don't know if that was the first thing that popped to their head because it was the day before Easter. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to get money to get Easter baskets. I don't know. It's just the whole situation just threw me off so quick. Kind of threw me off my square because I'd never been in a situation like that. And in today's society, it's easy, especially for a male, to get caught up. It's just too easy for a male to be caught up in a situation, whether he's trying to do the right thing or not. So I won't even lie. Like initially, I'm like, "Hey, get away from my door. I don't need these
Right,
problems." But
right.
I'm a father. I have daughters, and I could imagine my daughters going door to door asking such an open-ended question, and who could be on the other side of that door. So, and I went back and explained to them, like what you're doing is you put yourself in grave danger. You don't know who's on the other side of that door, what they're capable of. So that was my experience just
As
less
a
than a week ago.
as a former police officer, what would you tell anybody else, like just watching, if that was to happen to them? So if girls came up to my door, like what would be the
I
advice
mean,
you would give?
like my first piece of advice would be trying to see, hey, where are your parents at? Do you guys live in this neighborhood? How do, try and get somewhere to where you can like get in contact with the adult. And it's not for the purpose of like getting them in trouble, but explaining the danger that they're putting themselves in. Because I would tell as a parent, if someone came to you, and I'm just familiar as a former officer, if someone like, if say I took them to their door, the average parent probably going to raise holy hell.
Mhm. I
Probably
know I
going to,
would.
they're going to go, but I'm just saying that's not always the first, maybe your first instinct. Just like my first instinct was to get them off my doorstep, but that wasn't the best response. So I would
Right.
say, try to not lead out with so much force that, you shut them down because unless you've had this issue before or something, then that's a wholly different story. But if you don't know that your child is out there doing that, then come on, you got to take a pause. Now we got to talk about some self accountability.
What's the underlying
What
reason
message
why
haven't
they're doing it?
what message haven't I given to them to know what type of danger that they're potentially putting themselves in. Am I having the necessary talk with little girls in terms of the risk out there? How they snatching up little girls daily, seconds apart almost. So you got to make sure that we're having the conversations with them, to not put themselves in those dangerous situations also.
Yeah, and that's very important. Hey Wizzo, how you doing? Let's see what else he's saying over here. He said the dog and the doorbell. What's going on? Hey, unforeseen things happen when I'm doing this podcast. I, he's in the cage now, and I can't help somebody ringing my doorbell. Chanel said, "Oh, you got old Jack on the podcast." Yeah, man, Jack be talking about some serious stuff. Y'all don't even understand. I'm trying to get him on the podcast often because that brain be at work. All right. So basically, off of what you said, which is all good information, I jotted down some things that we can do, and it's a lot of young parents out here, like just growing up with their
Mhm.
kids. Like I know that's part of the problem, like that they haven't
All
even
right.
fully matured to be capable of teaching their kids how to be adults, or I'm sorry, be kids, or to govern their kids because they are still kids themselves. So the things I jotted down that's probably going to be helpful, but it's kind of hard like to like control it because they are kids themselves. Like it's just I was 15 when I got pregnant and 16 when I had my kid, and I was literally a teenager. So it's like I had no idea how to be a mom. You know what I mean? So but I was
Right.
very overprotective because I knew all the things I dealt with growing up. But a lot of kids still living out they childhood and their teenager years and raising kids. So they still want to turn up and party, and now they doing it with their
Mhm.
kids. So that leads me to my number one thing on my notes is modeling positive behavior. So, what does that look like,
Right.
Jack? Let's talk about what that looks like. Because we know kids learn from example,
Well,
not what you tell them. They learn from what they
right.
see you doing.
Well, just based on the fact that their question was how they could make money, I think that might be one of the things we want to put focus on. Stop putting so much value on, decimals and commas, and give them, valuable information, because somebody has made them think, I would assume, that money by any means necessary is almost the type of situation that they put themselves in. They put so much value on having a dollar that you don't even think about, am I putting myself in a dangerous situation? So I say, as a parent, or as a role model, or whether it's your parent or your uncle or whatever, you have to make sure that we're placing values in our children, not just having worried about valuables, stuff like that.
That's definitely an issue with our culture in general. It's like we ain't never had it, so as soon as we get some of it, it's everything. And like you said, that value system, a lot of people lack, especially in our culture. I don't,
Mm.
man, I wish we had like I think we did have it's like every time we get like some sort of leader, and I know that we shouldn't all be wrapped around some leader, but some leader with values, norms, and like this is how you should be, they fucking kill them off. So it's like it has to start in our homes. If it's not gonna start in your homes, I don't know where it's gonna start. And then you think about the parents. So like one of my parents was Jack, well, I didn't have a great upbringing. I'll just say that without throwing anybody under the bus. So I kind of had to learn a lot of things on my own. And along the way, there were other adults who stepped in and kind of showed me different routes that I could take. And then, obviously when I start learning on my own, it's like, yes, this is how I want to raise my kids. This is what I want to be. But if you don't have, like you, a person who stopped them from going out, because you could have just waved them off and let them be gone, and actually took time to talk to them about, hey, what you're doing can really be harmful to you. So even if they're not our children, is what I'm trying to say is that we need to start talking
Yeah.
to kids out here in the world because I've seen some kids, unruly children, just all over the place, and it's like, what first thing you think is, what are your parents? You know what I mean? And you don't know their parents could be in jail. Their parents could be in a mental institution. I work in a mental. It's so many adults in there, like just all messed up. So it's like, I think the first thing is to figure out where your parents at, and if you can find that out and reach the parents, hey, this is what your child is doing, and clearly you don't want to get them in trouble,
Mm.
but maybe they need to get in trouble. Like I think
Yeah.
discipline has been taken
And
out of the homes. Like,
Well, well, definitely, I agree that there's definitely a place for it. But I don't. I also want to say that my previous profession showed me that you do have parents that are out there trying, and just sometimes it's not about the resources; it's about the outside influence that our children
Yeah,
are subjected to. You just think when you and I were growing up, we had to watch the news or read the newspaper to hear about half of the bad stuff that's going on in the world. Get everybody walking around with the world in the palm of their hands now. So we hit so much bad information that we desensitized from it to some degree. You think about the number of shootings lately involving children, children doing committing murders, ruining lives
that's
before they even had started life yet. And
man.
so it's like the children have so much at their disposal. I had this thing this mentality that I developed some years back. As a parent, you have your first 5 or 6 years to lay your foundation. That's from when the time that they're born until the time they start leaving the house. If you don't take it seriously in those first 4 to 5 years, now you're competing with outside influence. You're competing with 18 to 25 of the kids, 5 to 6 of the teachers, so what's that? Maybe 130, 150 kids. You have all of these different influences that's going to affect your children once they start leaving the house. And as they progress through their school years, there's more and more time away from you because now they have the extracurricular activities. Your parenting may be doing it down to 2 to 3 hours a day by the time they're in high school. So
That
we
is a
don't if
very
we
true
don't lay
statement.
our found we don't lay down the foundation from the start. You have um you're in an uphill battle from that point.
What would you say to like those parents? And it's kind of hard, especially when you have multiple kids. Like you had three, four, five kids. Like I only had two, but like raising one was like so hard. Like I can't imagine how women be out here having two, three, four, five, six, seven kids. It's so difficult. What would you say to like those type of parents that have all these kids and don't have the village to help raise them? Like where's the help?
We we have to first thing we have to do is quit this I don't need each other mentality. You may not need a relationship, but if you have a child, you need a man in that life. If you're a father, you need a woman in their life. Our children need male and females in their life, teaching them, the proper way to go. I'm not talking about adult relationships. I'm talking about parental relationships. We need them. So, with that being said, this I don't need a man, I don't need a woman bullshit. It needs to go to the
Lord, I
wayside because
surrender.
we do. We do. Whether you want one for your personal um, needs is one story, but if there are children involved, you need a man, you need a woman. So
And not
until we
just
lose
any
that,
man
what
and woman,
we
though. Not just any
well,
man
of
and woman.
course, well, is
They're
it
gonna be an influence.
okay? Let me. Do I have to preface this by
Yes.
saying, you need positive role models in your
There
children's
you
life?
go,
I
friend.
mean,
There you
to say that, I just don't feel like it should be said that you need a positive choice. So
go.
yeah, if you out here chasing dope boys and
Because
hot
that's the
girls and stuff
thing.
like that, I'm saying so. That's what I'm saying. So that's what you're out here chasing. Then prepare for your child to be a dope boy or a hot girl. So you're responsible for their surroundings as well.
Yep. The number one thing, model positive behavior. If you allowing a man to put his hands on you and hit you, don't think that your children are not going to grow up thinking that's normal. You normalize it when you accept stuff like that, that type of behavior in your household. The kids normal. This is normal. Dad always scream or yell and cuss, like or boyfriend or whoever always. So they're going to normalize that behavior and grow up and have issues in those same is they don't do what you say, they do what they see. So if you model the positive behavior, the smoking weed, smoking anything around your kid, I wouldn't recommend that, period. Like you know what smoke does to you. So smoking around your kids, the cussing, the violent, the one that really gets me, like if I see the girls twerking and then they got their babies twerking, and I'm not sure why they think that is okay behavior. Like I didn't. I grew up like that. All the
Well,
kids dancing and all that. But the way I see it today is insane. And they putting the kids on the internet. It's just crazy. Like I don't know what can we do. Like what? All right. Let me go to my second point. Do you want to have anything to say about that?
Now, it's funny that you talk about the twerking thing because I remember seeing a video going around not too long ago. You got two adults and a little girl, and a woman jumping up and down making a butt clap. And you hear like it's clapping, and you got this little girl who look like she about 6 or 7 years old, like trying to figure out where the clapping coming from, and they giggling like this. What makes you think this is fun? Like you do it, people will do anything for clickbait. We're subjecting our children to who knows what, and sometimes just for the sake of some clicks. That right there is like it's just so distasteful. I can't even begin to describe.
Setting yourself up and your child up for failure. That's what you're doing. All right. Second point is teaching emotional intelligence. In other words, helping them understand their emotions and encouraging empathy and compassion towards others. So a lot of and we're gonna talk about the school shootings and stuff like that. So like a lot of the school shootings, in my opinion, is centered around a kid not knowing how to process emotions or even having compassion for whoever is bullying them. Because if you think about it, a bully is coming from somewhere. The underlying, he might have been bullied. He might get whoopings and can't fight his parents, so he take it out when he go to school. Like there are so many behavioral. It's a behavioral issue. So there's an underlying thing there. So imagine if we taught our kids, you know, if this person is doing this to you, is something going on with them, because that tells you everything about the other person, not yourself. But that has to be taught. Everybody don't
Mhm.
know that. Like people normally we just react to certain things. So if we teach our kids that the bullies says everything about them and how they feel about themselves and not you. You know, you look in the mirror and believe what I tell you and what you see yourself versus what somebody out in the street. And that goes back to like the kids being in school 8, 10 hours if they have sports. 10 hours of their life is going to be centered with these people, these kids, these teachers, and all
Well,
that behavior. Versus when they come home and you might still be at work, you might be asleep, and they getting very little time on mom and dad, which is why it's crucial to instill those values when they're very young, because when you do it when they're young,
right.
they seem to stick with them when they get older. But when you try to get them while they already caught up in social life and peer pressure,
Oh yeah.
it's hard to wheel them back in. I couldn't wheel my oldest son back in for nothing, and I tried everything. So it's crucial that we instill those
I
values and
mean,
stuff into them when they're younger. Go ahead, Fran. What do you got on that? That
yeah.
emotion.
That's definitely well. I mean, I agree for one. Well, you already know my take on terms of like creating the foundation early. With that being said, we also owe them. I don't care. You might not have the 3 to 4 hours a day like you used to when they were smaller, but we
Hmm.
have to take the responsibility and carve out time for them to like, yeah, this saying, we make time for the things we want to make time for, right?
True.
So as hard as it is, ain't nothing about being a parent is going to be easy. Ain't nothing about parenting easy because I've seen some parents, who are doing the best as they could and really were doing the right thing. And sometimes you do have that child to the streets. And I've never was one to tell a parent to give up on that child or anything like that. But there has to be boundaries set, because if not, then you're enabling them. I've seen adults in their 40s and 50s behave like teenagers because they're still in with their parents. They're still calling them the same grief that they called them growing up and stuff like that. And the parent didn't know how to cut them off. And like I say, it's hard to give up on a child. I can only imagine how hard it would be to give up on your child. But if there are other children involved, then there has to be some consideration. You can't lose three trying to save one.
I completely agree with you, which leads me to
That's
my
just
third
my
point:
opinion.
establishing clear boundaries and discipline, and being consistent and fair, and setting clear expectations and consequences.
Mhm.
I've seen kids, grocery stores, doctor's office. When I tell you these kids be cutting up and yelling at their parents, it's like, how, you can't even be a grown man like yelling at me and I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna shut down immediately. I'm gonna shut down.
Mhm.
So like for you to allow your kid to be screaming at you tells me that you don't have any healthy boundaries. There's no discipline going on in the house. Like this is what it exudes when I'm out and I see these type of things. And I don't babysit, but if I was to, it would be somebody who was well behaved, good mannerisms. Like so, if you want people to be watching your kids, you definitely need to train them up in a way where they're watchable. So like that's a huge one
Right.
as well. And when you were growing up, growing up, but raising your children, like did you have any disciplinary issues or did you have any issues like setting healthy boundaries?
Uh, I had a there was a transition in my parenting, like from different levels. Of course, more often than not, we parent the way we were parented.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, well, I'm saying one thing. I think more often than not, but I say oftentimes we parent the way we were parented because that was the blueprint you were given.
Mhm.
If you're lucky, in which I was lucky enough to where there was a range, age range between my kids to where I learned how to be a better parent as time went on, and learn how to communicate more and listen more to my children versus I'm the adult, do as I say, not as I do, because they're people you're dealing with.
Right.
They're still people. I think we often confuse our kids as our property. They're not our property. We have a responsibility for them, but they're not our property. So it's like you still dealing with a little person, but absolutely boundaries. And I think one of the biggest problem, well, a problem we have, we confuse discipline we title it as something bad. Discipline is another form of love. If I don't care
Absolutely.
nothing about you, I'm gonna let you run amok. So we have to dispel this notion that discipline is something bad. And I go as far as saying most kids prefer discipline in their life because it provides structure and it lets them know that someone cares about them. So
Yep.
we need to, sh- and
Yes.
I don't, and I mean, and we've transitioned from that. We in the kids is today, or the parents today, are in this soft parenting mode. You know,
Yeah, they call
time
it
out
CPS
and
now. They call it CPS on
they
the parent.
call, yeah. Oh yeah, they do it. Some of it is the system has taken some of the control out of the parents' hands in terms of what they discipline, how they discipline their kids. Me personally, when I was raising my kid, you getting it where you show out at. I'm going to embarrass you before you embarrass me. Was
I
my
know that's
mentality.
hey, I'm with you on
But
that.
but still, and it's like they have to start sort of like, they're in the store falling out already. If they 3 and 4 having temper tantrums in the store, he's so far behind. I don't think there's a age. I don't think you can be too young to start providing structure in a child's life. Explaining to them that they can't have everything that they see or want and stuff like that. So,
I think a lot of times, and I can only speak for me and like my upbringing. So, a lot of times we try to give kids what we didn't have, our parents try to give us what they didn't have, and then we follow the same suit
mm,
and try to give our kids what we didn't have.
yeah,
And then we
yeah,
realize
we
that,
were some punks. Yeah, we were some punks too. We
yeah,
punked out as parents. I want you to have it so better than me. It's like
yeah,
your toughest struggles. You ain't had the internet. Our kids, what struggles they have? Didn't like
I'm
nah.
telling you, I
So
would
we
buy
we
my
we we
kids.
started. We softened up.
I would buy my kids whatever Jordans they wanted. Like these are things that was important because they go to school. Because at first they was going to pay less. They ain't had no problem as little kids with the lights up and having a good old time. But then they go to middle school and now, oh, I need to have Jordans like the other kids. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't have that when I was growing up. I couldn't keep up when I was growing up. So let me make sure my kids keep up. To think that we're gonna slow down the risk of bullying and stuff like that in my mind, that's was my rationale for doing it because I can't see me ever
Yeah.
doing that ever again. So but what I did was I spoiled them and they became ungrateful and had a expectation that I'm supposed to do
Sense of
these things to
entitlement.
them. Yes. And it's
Entitled.
like me, my sisters, I mean, we've all dealt with it, our children like feeling like they're entitled to get whatever they can from us, and we not even supposed to ask for nothing back in return. It's like when we ask for a return, oh mama, you money hungry, you just want me to do this. It's like, what? I've been taking care of you
Mm.
even as an adult, doing for you as an adult, and you telling me I'm what? Taking you for granted. I've heard everything. But I can tell you this, when I have
Mm.
grandkids, I still might spoil my grandbaby, the first one anyway. But it's gonna also be attached with knowledge and wisdom that I didn't get, that I tried to give my kids, and I did give my kids maybe a little later on. When they were younger though, I spoiled them rotten. But when they got a little older, I started to try to instill that discipline. So I think it is very important, even at that young age, like you said, because when you try to do it later, you just somehow you fail. Because I failed miserably with mine, and I'm just trying
Yeah.
to will it back in, and then try to do the right
I mean,
thing.
but that's our generation. Like, it's not that you failed miserably. That's a generational thing that we share because we
Yeah,
had that mentality of trying to give them what we didn't have. So, not under, of course, hindsight is always 2020, but we didn't have the foresight then to think about, okay, how is this going to affect them 5 or 10 years from now?
right.
All we can think about is the times that we didn't have and what it felt like to be mocked or to,
Hmm.
not want to go to school because of the clothes you had to wear and stuff like that. Cause I've experienced as a child, wearing hand-me-downs and stuff like that. So
I was the
I get
youngest.
the feeling that you don't want them to experience, but we definitely have to find a balance between, first of all, needs versus wants, and
Hmm.
this thing of the sense of entitlement that many of them have. We got to
How do we get rid of
reintroduce them to reintroduce them to earning stuff. That's what we have to do. We have to reintroduce our children into earning things.
I think
Just because
everything
you
is
have a job don't mean they have a job. Just because you walk
exactly
around in nice stuff don't mean they have to have the same brand that you have. Yeah, they should have clean, you know, untitled clothing and stuff, but they don't need Michael Kors at damn age
right,
13 or 14. They haven't earned that. Like we need to reintroduce them to earning things
right.
and teaching them the value of a dollar because if they don't have to earn it and still get everything they want, money is no object to them.
It's
They don't
nothing, right?
understand it.
They don't.
They
I
they
think
didn't have
that's
to,
what. Yeah,
and half of them don't even have chores these days.
and they get
We
allowances. What the
we
hell? What you getting an allowance for? What you did?
I'm allowing you to live here without paying. That's your allowance.
They don't have to clean their rooms up. They, I don't even understand it. The stuff I see out in the world, it's like though you can tell the person. I think we need a retraining in our brains, like because we can tell you
Mm.
we can have this podcast, we can have this platform, but until a person is like retraining, because you see we're sharing our experiences, right? And I'm telling you, like our kids have that sense of entitlement, so they doing all the same things for their kids. Guess what their kids are going to have when they grow up? That sense of entitlement. So it's like
And it's gonna be worse. It's gonna be
it
worse
is
because
because
they
look at
walk
the world
around
we
with
live in.
iPhones and tablets and damn, Jordans ain't nothing anymore. They just got $1,000 phones and iPads and PlayStation 5s and whatnot. So it's like, yeah,
I used to
yeah,
give
like
my
that's
son
why I call it a
everything he wanted.
reintroduction.
I used to give my son everything he wanted and got him a job at my job where he's outside holding a sign and making like 15, $16 an hour, just standing there holding a sign. And he would go and buy what he wanted and then take something else and have money in his pocket. It's like, what makes you think you got the right to just take something from somebody? And you can
Mm.
just buy it. Like, I don't even understand that. Like, that would blow my mind. I would think, like, maybe he needs some medical help. Maybe he a klepto. Like, what's the word klepto? Where he can't help but take things. But like it just used to
Oh,
bother me so much, and I used
kleptomaniac.
to blame
Mm.
myself and think, where did I go wrong? Like, where did I go wrong? Like we as parents, we usually blame ourselves. But I could tell you this, like parents that's out here really trying to be a
Mm.
part of their life, kids' lives, trying to teach them better, and just hang in there because it is a struggle for all of us. Now Ashley said, let's not fault ourselves because as adults, we have to take accountability for our own actions. I mean, if your kids
Mm.
are doing, yeah, if your kids are doing something or they're not doing something, uh, it came from somewhere. So if we're not monitoring their friends, like, cause I know, like, when my kids, I wouldn't even allow them to spend the night at their friend's house, cause I don't know what's going on over there. So if they want to spend night, child, they got to spend night at my house, so I can at least monitor what's going on. But I know kids that have like sleepovers and they let their kids go pack the bag. You don't know what's going on over in their house. Like, and stuff is happening to where our
Mhm.
kids are like self-harming, and you're like, where does shit come from? Kids are becoming thieves. You like, where you ain't never stole nothing from that stuff is coming from somewhere. It is learned behavior. Our children were not born with these evil tendencies. Like they just weren't born that way. It came from somewhere.
Mhm.
So we have to monitor every little thing now with our children. The number fourth point I'm making is encouraging open communication and making sure they feel heard and valued. You said something earlier to the point where they are little people. You know, they're not our property,
Right.
and that's a huge one. I had to really wrap my mind around that one because I wouldn't even let my son talk sometimes. When I'm mad and I want to get on him and discipline him, all I wanted
Mhm.
him to do was listen. I didn't want to hear nothing he had to say. But I found that it's important that
And
we hear what they got to say and their reasoning behind what they doing or why they doing whatever they doing, just so that we can get an idea like, okay, maybe I need to touch something else, or it's an underlying thing going on that's got them in doing this
well,
behavior.
Trey,
Go ahead.
I would say that's the case 90% of the time. Sometimes they need to just shut the hell up and respond to what you're telling them to do because you might not have time to explain why I'm telling you to get out of the way of this bus that's coming this way. So when I
Right,
tell you to move, I don't need a why, just move. So there are situations where they do need to have enough discipline to shut up and listen. But
right.
there's often times, and not always times, where you can circle back around and have a discussion after the fact. And
Yeah,
sometimes a discussion may not be apropos in the moment. So if it's not the moment for discussion, I can get it sometimes, but we have to. What taught me this was my turning point. My son, my baby boy, he probably was about maybe 10 or 11 years old, 12 at best. I remember him dropping this dish to one of my skillets, shattered all over the place. And I'm
mm,
rah, 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 rah. I'm just going left on going ham and stuff like that. And my daughter, she said, Dad, he doesn't hear you anymore. She's like,
mm-hmm.
once you went here, everything in him, and she's 3 years apart from him. She knows her brother. Like, so it's like that moment, like, okay, this me going hard, yeah, I'm getting my word judo in, but he's not taking in anything. And so
Right.
that's what taught me to, to have to listen. And also taught me the value in having, sometimes we can use our children as mediators. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that, we're not doing our job as parents. That they have a form of communication that we're not privy to. They may talk to each other more than they'll talk to us and stuff like that. So, there's some value in, listening to your kids. Not to mention, you don't know when they're going to need to tell you something one day. And if you always shut them down, they're not going to come to you. If
And
all
that's
they
what
know is
I was
mom or dad
getting. Hmm.
doesn't allow us to talk, no need me even telling you what I'm going through because you're just going to shut it down, or you're going to I'm going to feel unheard. So, uh, it's important to let them have a voice.
Absolutely. I've dealt with a whole grown man who said he wasn't allowed to speak his mind as a child and growing up. So now he just say whatever the hell comes to his mind when he probably needs to keep some of that stuff inside. But yes, it definitely affects you. Whatever what I've learned is affects you as a child, it will still affect you as an adult. So if you are immature and all these things and not emotionally intelligent, not or don't know how to monitor your feelings or govern your own self, you're gonna be that way as an adult. Like it doesn't just change. Like if you don't get help and work towards being a better you, you're gonna be the same you, just in an adult body. So Ashley said
Yeah.
it is, but they as adults have the choice to change it for the better. So see,
We
those
talking
are
about children right
words.
now. She
Right.
keep
We're
going to
talking,
adults. I'm
but we
talking.
did touch
This
up on
started about kids. Yeah.
right, but we did touch up on those kids becoming adults.
Well,
But if you start off
right,
um,
yeah, but
younger as a kid, so we can say that we was a shitty parent, and now they teenagers and they grown, and now we trying to say, hey, you can't. As an adult, they're gonna do what they want to regardless. Like no matter what mom or dad say, for the most part, it's up to
you
them to make the choice.
yeah, that at
So
that point,
I agree with
you're an advisor at best.
right. I agree with that. They have the choice when they become adults,
Yeah.
But again, whatever is back there, that's how they gonna operate. It's not so simple to just say now they can change it and do the better. Or we wouldn't have so many issues now as a grown people, like that's still
Mhm.
using and abusing their parents. So it's 40-year-olds living with their parents, 30-year-olds living with their parents. Clearly, somewhere there was a disconnect. And Chanel said,
Mm.
yes, my son said the same thing.
Hold on, I need to grab
He
my.
tuned me out once I start hollering. So it's important like that we listen to our children, hear what they have to say, and try to keep a calm, monotone voice to where we not like trying to be intimidating because it could be intimidating you yelling, screaming. I know my kids used to hate when I raise my voice, yell, especially if you spit on them. They don't want nothing to do with that. So it is important that, and it's just like exhibiting a behavior you want. So if or modeling it. So like if I remain calm, then he's more likely to remain calm. If I'm yelling and screaming, then
Right.
he's gonna want to yell and scream. That is a relationship thing, even with kids. Like when you're dealing with little kids, you yelling and screaming, they think that's okay now. So when they get upset, guess what they doing? They yelling and screaming, thinking that's appropriate when it's not. So as adults, it's important
I
that we
guess.
try to remain calm. Here's number 5 point, and
All
this is
right.
huge, especially with the females and males that we're seeing online and on social media, that we can look at and say, yeah, she lacks self-confidence. So number 5 is promoting
All right.
self-confidence, celebrating efforts over results, and allowing them to make choices and learning from mistakes. What do you got on that, firm?
Celebrate efforts over results.
Yeah, just promoting
I mean, I
self-confidence,
mean,
what that looks like
I
for
mean, I
you.
get it. I mean, I agree with that to a degree. You know what? We can't. Everybody gets a trophy now.
Mm,
These we live in a participation trophy generation and stuff. Even the water boy gets a trophy and stuff like that. So yeah, we want to promote self confidence, but let's not over uh reward. Let's make sure it's actual effort. We're not
right,
rewarding just everyday stuff that you should be doing. Let's give rewards what they're doing. I just celebrate everything because it's like you you teaching them that the world is gonna just cheer them on and all everything you
you know
do, you're
that's a
gonna get
lie.
all this recognition from. Yeah, you're gonna, everybody's gonna be happy go lucky and your picture. I mean, we all know some pictures don't belong on the refrigerator. Some pictures don't belong on
Wait
the
a minute.
refrigerator. Like
What?
putting your little macaroni art on the refrigerator when you know it's ugly.
Wait a minute. Oh, that's that thing about like, and I'm just gonna throw this in there and I'll let you talk about it for a minute. Like promoting like somebody being obese or overweight and you know that's not healthy, but they encourage it anyway. But like, girl, you look good, and they know like yeah, you
Oh,
look unhealthy. Like that's one of those sensitive topics. I just let you
yeah.
touch up on it a little bit because it's a lot of little kids out here that are obese, and it's like parents just keep feeding them
Mhm.
trash, candy, junk food. It's like this person is going to grow up, and
So that,
these unhealthy habits are
that's
going to grow up
that's
with them. You breaking up or something, friend? I can't hear you. Are you there, sir? Oh, not really sure what's happening there. I'm not sure what's happening with the Jack there, but he's kind of frozen. It stopped raining, so I'm not sure. Let's see. Um, all right, just give me a minute. I'm not sure what happened there. Let me see what happened there. Yeah, I think he had to go out and go back in. But if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the children, which is our future, how we have to do better as a unit, as a people, like with other people, children. You know, they say it take a village. It literally does. This is issues going on in our community as far as not having somebody there or having a community of people to help us raise our children. Ashley said, Ashley said you need to have a call in so people can be clear on what they're replying to. I'm so sorry, darling. I don't have a call in. Maybe later on. Maybe later on. Um, I don't know what happened to my guests. If I can't get them in another 2 minutes, we're gonna shut it down because I do have dance class I gotta go to. And we stopped on encouraging open communication and making sure they feel heard. No, we stopped on promote self confidence. There's a whole other half, so we'll have a part two coming soon about our future and our children. Any more concerned parents out there just need help or just information on how they can do better. Oh, I think he done came back in. I was getting ready to shut it down, my friend, because we was gonna have to do a part two, which we're gonna need a part two because it's only five. I got five more topics and I
Yeah,
gotta get to dance class. But this is
yeah, we can stop at yeah, let's stop at 5. Let's stop at 5.
yeah. So number five was promote self confidence. I think you was getting ready to speak on that. As far as like we was talking about obese kids, like, and that's just unhealthy within itself. I know you like a health guru, so I'll let you talk about that, and then we'll go ahead and close it down because I have to go to dance class. But this is absolutely an important topic. We're talking about our future. We're talking about our children's. We're talking about young parents raising young children. They need help. We're going to have to help them by any means necessary, if you can, anyway. I've dealt with Jack has been like a great help with helping my nieces and great nieces out. You know what I mean? Like just people like that you need to keep around and keep in your circle that can help you whenever you need help. So I'm gonna get to you on the self confidence, promote self confidence, whatever you want to say on that, and then we're gonna end it. This is part one of two series about helping our youth. So go ahead, sir.
Well, well, I agree that you know we should instill confidence in our children. You know that way, the better job we do at home, the less validation they're going to need in the streets. The less validation that they're going to need from social media. So we really, even though we may struggle with our own self confidence, just our personal experience alone should, you know, motivate us to make sure that we don't pass that on to our child. You know, at least, you know, sell it to them as best you can, you know, because the better, you know, the more it comes from you, someone who it comes from a person that loves them. You know, they're not going to look for that fake love out in the social media space and you know in the streets and stuff like that. But as you know, you touched on you know, kids being overweight and stuff like that. They have to teach them that they're eating, you know, the lifestyle, their lifestyle creates how they actually live. You know, you have
Mm,
people walking around here, you know, obese, and it's like it's really, you know, I tell people, in all honesty, the aesthetics is a bonus. It's like my fitness journey is about living that. I had a mild stroke at age 50. I had a pretty tough bout with COVID when the pandemic first came out. So you know, it made me you know look at my mortality from a different perspective. So if you think, you know, you out here just doing this to be cute, you know, stop thinking it's just about being cute. You know, you trying to live a healthy lifestyle or, you know, have a quality of life as you age and stuff like that. And it needs to be lifestyle habits, not just diets and, you know, trends and stuff like that. And we start those things early in our children. You know, we instill that in them early. We can instill that in them early. So I
yeah.
just stop it right there.
All right, and I'll just add one little bit thing to that. That also can make the difference between whether or not your child is a follower or a leader. And I know from personal experience, having your child to be able to be a thinker for themselves will keep them out of a lot of trouble versus being a follower and they just want to go with what everybody else is doing. So, promoting self
All right.
confidence is highly important. Like, And with the health kick, I've been trying to get and be consistent in my health journey. Sure, you fall off, but that doesn't mean you got to give up. So as long as you keep
That's why it's a
trying,
journey.
yes, as long as you keep
That's why
trying,
it's a
you'll
journey,
get there
Cree. It's not a
eventually.
sprint. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well, a lot of us,
Marathon,
we
not a
just want
race.
to, since we dieted yesterday, we want to see 10 pounds gone today. So I understand it is a journey.
That instant gratification.
Yeah,
Yeah, the instant gratification.
absolutely. I want to thank you, sir, for coming in on this one part, two-part series now. Uh, we're gonna bring the second part whenever sir gets available. But I want to thank you again for coming in,
Mm.
sharing your experiences, sharing your stories. Thank you for what you do out in the community and helping our kids and our youth become better. I think like the overall is thought from the whole conversation is we have to live by example of what we want our children to be like, and if we're not doing that, we
Right.
already failing them. You know, so
Mm.
thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the questions and the comments. I remember y'all have to stay sucker free like Cree. I gotta throw that in the end, friend. You got anything else? Any other closing comments, sir, before you get out of here?
No, I appreciate you taking out some time to touch on the subject. And like I said, we need to talk about it more. Not let it just be a passing thing. We talk about all that other stuff day in, day out. So we got to add that to the agenda.
Let's do that. And I appreciate you for bringing it to my attention. And we will do that. Absolutely. And when I have our all emotions aside, I know y'all know it's coming soon. Our first show is going to be May 31st. I need y'all to come out, support your girl, because I will be on a panel. And that will absolutely be one of the topics that we will definitely tackle, whether they want to or not. We're going to do it, right? So y'all come out and support your girl and what I'm doing and what we're doing for our community, because we're going to touch up on the things that's going on around us, not everywhere else, but what's going on right in our neighborhood. So thank y'all again for tuning in. Thank you, Jack, for showing up and showing out. I will talk to y'all soon.
All right,
Stay
have a
sucker
go.
free like Cree. All righty. Bye.